when you set those up?
They're on the table.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Okay, I would like to call to order the Monday, August 19th meeting of the City of Monona Finance and Personnel Committee. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Kinsler?
Here.
Alder Wood?
Here.
Mayor O'Connor?
Here. Jake, do you want to check with them and tell them we don't have any picture here? I don't know if that means they're not streaming or what. There we go. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the August 5th meeting?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any changes or additions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. We are going to delay the appearance section till later in the meeting since the auditors are stuck in traffic. There is no unfinished business. Item 6, new business. Item A, consideration of resolution 19-8-2368, approving a bid for the purchase and installation of a refrigerated outdoor ice rink system at Riverfront Park. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. So in your packet, you have the supporting materials for the purchase of a refrigerated ice rink at our new Riverfront Park. Requests for proposals went out. We received 4 back, which is a very strong number, and the numbers came within line with what we had budgeted for the overall project. The apparent low bidder of Custom Ice is a recommendation from myself. I did ask to have this starred for one reading due to basically we're on a timeline crunch right now to be able to build out the system and the chiller system and have it installed here for a grand opening in mid-November. Took a little bit longer to develop the RFP with our consultants, where we basically had to kind of take it over and do it in-house. But we had a lot of contact with the apparent low bidder, who was very helpful in providing information. The system that they use, the rink, for maintenance and efficiencies of putting it in and out each year is a much more efficient system than the other proposals that we received. So I'm very confident in recommending award of bid to Custom Ice for this rink, and we would set out to be rolling the weekend before Thanksgiving this year.
Questions? Doug?
So will any of the ice rink be like a permanent installation?
The chiller, which would be the cooling unit for the ice rink, and there's basically booster pumps, will sit on a pad over by the bike rack and transformer on the, I guess, northwest side, and that'll be enclosed by the louvered fence, so you won't really see it from the road. Those will stay. The actual rink and the boards will be removed seasonally after the ice skating season.
Okay. So I guess I was wondering if any of the costs for this are TIF eligible?
Yeah, so part of it, the permanent stuff, will I need to clarify what Bill has to approve it. The way TIF kind of works, some of these like odds and ends when it comes to the equipment and permanent structures like that, it has to be part of the project plan, which there's kind of a gray area right now in our project plan that doesn't really mention it, but it does mention some type of infrastructures and things like that, so we can use it there. But as far as like equipments and stuff like that, a lot of times that's not eligible because that can be used throughout the city. And that's kind of one of the tests they take with the permit stuff. It can be. So what I'll be going to be working with was Bill and the auditors and kind of go through all that stuff. Other than what, just besides the ice rink, we're going to kind of figure out what is considered TIF and not TIF and get that. So right now we currently borrowed, I believe, $900,000 for for all the direct cost and all the ice skating rink. And once we figure out what is that, we'll allocate to what's TIF and general obligation. I can report back once we figure all that stuff out, but we will be allocating a portion of it. At that number right now, I don't have an answer to.
Just to clarify, the 900,000 is for more than just the ice rink.
Right, that's all the direct purchases. The concession is in there too.
Yep.
So that's, I'm just saying we don't have to borrow additional money, which is how we're going to allocate it eventually once we figure those numbers out.
Okay.
So when will the rink be put in place in like November or December, and then removed when?
Right, so we'd be looking at install in early November, and that was when the contractor will come out site, install, provide all the training necessary to operate it. Generally, you're good through the end of February, for sure, and depending on weather and where our costs have been for the season, we may get another week or two out of it. So if we can extend it into the first weekend in March, that would be great. It's just going to depend on what those seasonal temps are. This ice skating rink will be able to skate and maintain the ice in air temperatures up to 50 degrees. So it does have a pretty good cooling factor. They utilize, historical data from this region on weather to size the chiller unit, which would be cooling it's basically a closed loop system. So it pumps a mixture of glycol and water through a series of tubes. So think of like in-floor heating, except in reverse. And then when you put your water on it, it freezes that. So up to 50, we're pretty comfortable. I think nationwide, a lot of the data suggests once you get into March, it's kind of a coin flip on what the consumer threshold is for continuing to keep skating.
Right, okay. Any concerns about whether it will kill the grass?
There are some concerns about it. I mean, it's been designed and engineered to handle this. We do have an irrigation system in the green space that we will be maintaining that to get it as healthy and thick as possible. We will also have it on a nutrient management program. So, we'll know a lot more in the spring of next year on if we have to do some modifications. I do have a good relationship with a senior professor at UW-Madison that we met through the university program in turf sciences, and so I'm going to make sure I reach out to him and see if there's some best practices we can do to the turf to reduce that issue.
Okay, and then it sounds like then some of the equipment, the boards and such, will need to be stored.
Correct.
Or where are we going to do that?
We do have an agreement with the developer that's going to provide space to store the ice rink equipment.
At no cost?
Correct.
Okay.
That's good.
So is your plan to install the grass yet this year, or are you going to leave it blank this year since it doesn't have enough time to?
As long as we don't get rain tomorrow, I've been told sod will be cut on Wednesday and installed on Thursday or Friday.
Nice.
So ideally, at the Riverfront Park, landscaping restoration is happening this week, so all of the plantings are being put in and mulch, finishing the kind of paver block area where the outdoor fire pit is, and then hopefully sod by the end of the week. And lighting, all the lighting in the park by the end of this month.
You said you called their references. Were there any concerns that popped up when you called references of this company?
No, they were extremely positive in the overall working relationship with the manufacturer, the response to inquiries and their follow-ups. And I've had that same experience in my dealing with the company.
And then I think you touched on it, but the reason that we have it starred and didn't have it for another read was just because you were working with somebody to draft the RFP, and then that fell through, and then it came in-house?
Correct. Yep. And we're really at that threshold of if we want to open, that weekend before Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving weekend, which that period between Thanksgiving and New Year's is you're going to be your best revenue generator period. We need to get this moving so we can get especially the chiller in production. We can't.
So if we approve this today, when would they start work, and when would it be done?
We get contracts signed this week. We get finalized electrical drawings this week so Hamburg can finish where the pad is going to sit. So that's one last thing that they have to do on that side of the park. And then we would be getting shop submittals throughout the next month or so, and they would be down in early November for installation.
Sorry, last question. So then do they install the board every year, or do they train you how to install the boards and all that stuff?
First year they'll install, and we can be there and supervise and videotape and get trained. They will also come back in the spring and take down and show us how to do it and store it properly, and then after that we'd be on our own. Certainly if we didn't feel comfortable in future years, we could do it on a time and material basis, but I'm confident based on my research doing it and the ease of disconnection, and it's a similar process to how we winterize our shelters and outdoor pool for removing the material that keeps the ice cold. So I'm confident that our staff will be able to handle it.
Sorry, final question here. So where do we get the water for this? Are we taking it out of fire hydrant or?
Nope, we'll have a water source within our utility storage room where the hopefully Zamboni will be sitting. And so basically at the beginning of the year, you slowly add water to the unit. It'll build up layers, and then the Zamboni unit has a water tank in it. So it'll kind of shave the ice and add hot water and keep adding layers of ice to the rink.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor, say, did you have something else?
Sorry, one quick one. I keep saying sorry. So is there appropriate padding or whatnot for the ice machine to go from the ice to the shelter each time so it doesn't scratch or whatever?
That's a
it might
great question. Yeah, absolutely. So part of our overall budget includes kind of a placeholder for, I call it cow matting. It's a rubber 1/2-inch thick matting that we'll have to place over the concrete in the area that the Zamboni would travel to the rink because it has studded tires on it. And then also around the fire pit and up to the shelter building where people would walk with their skates so they're not walking over the concrete.
Okay, thanks. That's it,
Anything
yeah.
else? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
We need a roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Kitzler.
Aye.
Motion passes. I'm just going to do the Zamboni right now, and then we'll have the auditor come up. It's okay. Item 6B, consideration of resolution 19-8-2369, approving the purchase of an ice resurfacing machine. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move approval.
Second.
Jake?
So this is a machine that will keep our ice skating rink perfectly flat and fresh and skatable. It's an electric, the name of it is Bumblebee. It's manufactured by a company called Sport Ice. So it's a smaller version of what we would consider a Zamboni. Zamboni is a brand name of an ice resurfacer. This unit will be used daily during ice operations. Typically, you're resurfacing your ice 2 to 3 times a day to be able to keep it in really good shape. This has a fairly lengthy lead time on it. Working and talking with the manufacturer, they will try to expedite it to get it here in time for the start of the season. But again, that's the reason that it started for one reason, one reading, excuse me. Not a lot of manufacturers of this type of equipment for the rink size. So a typical ice resurfacer that you'd see at a indoor skating rink or a professional hockey rink is about $150,000 brand new purchase price and overkill for what we need. And our rink is just big enough that a typical spraying with a garden hose isn't gonna cut it for the quality that we're looking for. So this machine would be dedicated to the park development and the ice rink. It also come with the ability to be branded as far as a sponsorship, and with the support of the council, I would be pursuing that option as well.
Questions? Andrew?
I see, Mark, the fiscal note says the total cost is currently $892,992.
Yeah.
Is that including if we approve the 38 for this?
Yeah,
or-
so that's
okay.
all included in that. So
All right.
that's the concession stand and everything. That's part of the direct purchases.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Hearing none, all in, oh, will the clerk please call the roll? Sorry.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Kitzler.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you.
Now we will move back to appearances for a presentation of the 2018 Financial Audit Report by Schenk SC. Hey, Jake? Jake? I'm sorry, could you ask the guys if there's something they can do to have the picture up here, too? You can do it? Okay. There you go, Doug. All right.
Okay, you should have received a copy of the annual financial report. We'll kind of walk through the city's annual financial report. This is the city's financial report for the year ended December 31st of 2018. If we turn to page 1, Page 1 of the report talks about the independent auditor's report. This is really our contribution where we walk through the financial statements of the city, are consistent with governmental entities, and produce both the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and the remaining fund information. So this indicates that our audit included all the funds of the village, or of the city, excuse me, and all the activities of the city. These financial statements are the responsibility of management. Our responsibility is to express an opinion. So on page 1, on the bottom, we indicate that in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. What that means is we would make no modifications to the report you have in front of you. We believe it accurately reflects the financial position and results of operations for the city for the year then ended. If you turn to page 2, just want to point out a couple other things. In addition to the independent auditor's report, there was one change in accounting principles, and it relates to statement number 75, accounting and financial reporting for post-employment benefits. This was the life insurance program through the Wisconsin retirement system. The Wisconsin retirement system had an actuarial evaluation of that plan, and it evaluated and reported the financial, it reported the city's portion of the unfunded plan balance. So that is new this year. That was the first time the Wisconsin retirement system did issue a actuarial plan on that plan. The rest of the report talks about additional information, required supplemental information, and also a report related to government auditing standards. So in addition to our normal audit, which follows the audit standards of governments in GAAP, we do issue a second report, and it's at the back of the page 91 and 92. That report is really designed to say, as a governmental entity, you are responsible for not only managing public funds, but also compliance with laws and regulations. So this report really looks not only at the financial activities of the city, but also looks at the internal control and compliance. We're pleased to indicate that from our opinion, the city complied in all material respects with the laws and regulations that you're required to comply with, like levy limits, debt limits, all those different types of things, and that we had no items that we considered deficiencies within your internal control. So we made small and recommendations related to various different activities, but from a standpoint, overall the financial statements accurately reflect and present the financial results for 2018, which it's important to reflect that is a very strong statement on the city's internal control structure, and so certainly something to be proud of as a city, to go through an audit and have no deficiencies related to internal controls. Then if we turn to page 4, I'm just going to briefly talk page 4 through page 12 is what is called management's discussion and analysis. And it walks you through some of the significant areas related to 2018 and kind of walks you through kind of what happened in 2018. So if you had 10 minutes and wanted to get a good understanding of what happened, these 8 pages or so would give you a reflection of what some of the significant activities for 2018 were. Then if we turn to pages 13, 14, and 15, these are your government-wide financial statements. So these aren't how you adopt your annual budget, but it reflects the city as a full enterprise operation, meaning all liabilities, all assets. What's important to look at is when you look at your total assets were about $119 million. So those are assets that are under the control of the city, or recorded assets of the city. A lot of those assets are what we call capital assets, the building we're in, the roads that we take to get throughout the city. Those are assets that provide services to the community. Those are assets that obviously over time have to be replaced. But those are also valuable assets that you use to deliver services to the city residents. The only other thing I want to point out in the total asset line, if you look up probably 3 lines or 3 lines above net pension asset. If you remember the Wisconsin retirement system, we talked about the life insurance program through the Wisconsin retirement system.
Can I just interrupt you for
Sure.
a minute? If any of the council wants a copy of this audit report, they're in the box here if you'd like to follow along. I'm sorry, go on.
Sure, no problem. So if you look at your net pension asset, that is a Wisconsin retirement system. It is a year delay. What that means is that's the value as of December 31st, 2017. If you remember, 2017 was a very strong investment year, so any pension system would have strong returns. So you are actually in an asset position as of the end of 2017, as reported in your financial statements. If you look at your total liabilities include long-term debt that's issued to fund either development projects through your tax increment districts or infrastructure improvements of the city. So total liabilities is about $90 million this year. And then your net position or net ownership did increase from about $17.6 million to about $18.2. Really reflects the city's reinvestment in the infrastructure within the city. If you turn to pages 14 and 15, 14 and 15 go through the results from 2018 and 2017. It kind of shows that there are program revenues and expenses, and then there's general revenues, which are primarily property taxes and other intergovernmental aid. But you can see for the last 2 years, that line change in that position, you grew by about $775,000 this year, so positive. And then you see a couple lines down that impact of implementing that life insurance had an impact, starting balance impact of a deficit of about $122,000. So pretty small in relationship to the city, but it is being recorded. Then if you turn to page 17, here you start your fund financials. Pages 16 and 17 go through your governmental funds. The city has a number of what we call major funds as listed. And just wanted to point out really, or go to one page. If you go to page 22, and we'll have some comments in our management communications, but 22 really focuses on your general fund. How did your general fund do? Okay. So if you look at page 22, you can see, if you look at the bottom, your general fund did increase, your fund balance did increase about $315,000 this year, and finished with a balance of $2,222,000. So you can see a nice, strong budget year. If you go through, revenues were over budget by $187,000. You can see that, expenses were under budget by about $93,000. So overall, what that indicates is your department heads and the management of the city are really managing your budget and managing your expenditures as reported here. So a very strong indication when you're managing the budget to what you originally issued to the final expenditures. And then you can see transfers in exceeded budget. The primary reason for the transfers in exceeding budget is if you go up to the taxes, the city changed how you recorded the room tax, so it's a deficit in taxes, but an increase in the transfer as you moved that out to a separate fund. Then if we look at page 24 and 25, your enterprise funds, the city does have what we call 3 major enterprise funds, water, sewer, and stormwater, and 1 non-major, which is transit. All funds had if you look at the income or loss before contributions, nothing unusual, very consistent results. If you look at each of the water utility had about $700,000 prior to the transfer to the general fund. The other funds had small losses, but a lot of that relates to depreciation. Any questions on any of that?
Questions, anyone? It's not,
The rest of the report is various different notes or additional details that supplement the information. So it gives you some additional commentaries on some of the activities.
I just, one thing that you might want to point out to them is page 4, it talks, I know one question that always comes up is our fund balance. So it talks about 24% of total general fund expenditures, and that's where we want to be at that 15 to 20. So that's just so that's a good number. Just want to point that
Yeah,
out.
thank you. Yeah, that's definitely an indication of strength within your general fund. So. Then we issue a second communication, which we call management communications. I'm not, a lot of it is the same information, providing a little information on your tax increment districts and your debt position in your governmental funds. So just wanted to point out on your governmental fund balances, starting on page 5, really no concerns from our perspective on any of the governmental funds. As we just talked, your general fund did have a nice increase and you're at 24%, so no real concerns. Some of the tax increment districts obviously go up and down with debt proceeds and capital projects. If we turn to page 6 kind of walks through net unreimbursed project cost. That is a normal part of your tax increment districts as you fund projects with various different costs. You can see that you can recover at the moment 24 million. TIF 2 was closed, and that was a portion of that was funding additional loan programs in 2019. So that did close. The rest of the funds, we have additional details. I'm not going to go through each TIF district. The city does a very good job of managing your districts, managing the expenses and the various different costs. If we turn to page 11, page 11 kind of looks through on the bottom of your city's debt position. General obligation debt currently about 47, almost 48 million. You can see about 4.8 million of that relates to business type, which is your water, sewer utility. About 42 million relates to governmental, of which about 20.5 is funded through not general property taxes, but increments in tax increment districts. If we turn to page 12, you can see levy legal margin for new debt. You have about 18, almost 19 million of margin yet for additional debt. And you do have some revenue bonds as detailed on page 12.
Excuse me, Edmund.
Sure.
On the legal margin for new debt, I assume that does not take into account the recent new equalized values.
Doesn't take into the new equalized value or any debt issued in 2019.
Right.
Yep. Then if we turn to page 13, we do have 3 comments and observations. None of these comments are significant. These are really designed to continue to improve your strong internal controls. They really relate about departments, journal entries, and credit cards. Our role as auditors is to look through various different transactions. So we sample transactions. All our sample transactions indicated that everything was functioning and expenditures were properly recorded. Just a couple areas where perhaps additional controls could be reviewed. But they're not significant deficiencies, they're not material weaknesses, they're just generally areas where additional review or oversight might be valuable. But as I indicated, our audit went very well. We had no problems with the audit, no significant areas of concern as part of our audit. So we do work with Mark and his group, but we do work with a lot of different departments, and everyone was very prepared as we came in. Then 14 and 15 are just 2 new standards. Our role is really to introduce new standards. So one relates to new lease standards. If you followed FASB in the for-profit world, they spent a long time since Enron talking about leases. They finally came up with some agreement to how to handle leases on the private company side, and GASB followed suit relatively quickly. And then the last one is just recording fiduciary activities. So these are not effective for this year, but just more FYI going forward. So with that, I'll entertain any questions. Like I said, audit went very well. So any questions?
Questions, anyone?
Sure, I will at some point, but.
We need some time to digest
Yes.
this. but then we will-
Sounds good.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. All right. I think we'll move on to at least the monthly financial report.
Yep, some
Is
more
that
number stuff here.
more numbers, yeah.
So just the financials, just want to say right now, knock on wood, we're doing good this year. The revenues are going to be up. Kind of go in detail, but just kind of a summary. The revenues are going to be up for the general fund. We did use about $619,000 of fund balance in last year's budget. We probably won't be using that full amount just because the numbers are coming in well. Areas of concerns are two biggest areas of concerns are the building maintenance issues. We have a lot, not so much in the library. The library's actually way down. It's more the city building, city hall, and the community center. Those basically are at 100% of their budgets right now. And the other one, I just drew a blank. I wrote down is the solid waste fund, which is the recycling. We talked about this before. Recycling revenue will probably be about $30,000 short, $35,000 short in that fund. I think we might pick up a little bit with the recycling revenues are going up, but it's still going to be well short. So that's something we'll have to adjust in the 2020 budget. It's something we'll have to maybe transfer in to cover the cost and from the general fund to the solid waste fund at the end of the year. But other than those two, snow is another one, but it's kind of the three things so far this year. As far as the revenues, three biggest things so far is permits are up. Look at page 49, permits are way up. We're already way over budget with the revenues. And as you can see, the excavating permits are up. And a lot of it's related to the TDS and permits and other permits related to that type of activity. Also on page 50, we'll be adjusting this. Will be a positive for the 2020 budget. Is the revenues for interest income is way up. I don't know how the Fed rates is going to cut our interest income coming in, but for right now, we're way under budget that. A couple things for expenses I want to point out. I know we're going to be short of time here. Is page 51, our legal retainer. It's January through June. It's on pace, probably be one of the lowest years we've had. So it's been a really good year. I mean, especially Brian kind of taking that over, working with Bill. So that's going to be a savings there, I believe, by year end. Page 54. I put number 1 here. I don't read my scribbles, but repair and maintenance services, already over budget. A lot of that's, it's filters we had to be put in, boilers were 2,300, the heaters 3,000, and a water softener 4,000, water heater another 1,100. So it adds up pretty quick. Little things are falling apart, but hopefully, those be fixed for the future. Otherwise, most of the general fund expenditures are kind of right where they're supposed to be. I did make a note on page 64 in the library, and I think I got this cleared up with Ryan. We got this figured out. Wages for part-time were way up. We thought we were going to be way over budget. But we found one of the people who was hired in at a salary position was included in the part-time because they were a part-time employee. So once we reclass those wages, we'll bring in line, so we won't have I thought we were going to be about 20,000 over. We'll probably be right where we're supposed to be, so that will help.
I had a question about page 63,
Yeah.
to the, why is the county aid for libraries so much higher than planned?
Well, it's actually,
I
don't
thought it
get
was
this-
going down every year.
I don't have the split from Ryan, but it's, if you add the two budget numbers together, the county library and facility aid. it's
Oh,
not
part of
bro-
that is the facilities?
It's not broken
Okay.
out.
Okay, that
Um,
makes sense.
I haven't got that number from Ryan, how to break it out yet. So I did touch on the, well, I suppose I better hurry up here. One last thing, just kind of kind of make a bunch of notes, is utilities. Just so you know, usage is down this year, for the utilities for usage, so that's, or it's usage is down or leveling off a little bit, so with that.
You mean the city's usage?
No, the residents' usage, overall usage for the utilities, water and sewer utilities. So like on page 83 and is, I think 80 or 79. So the usage is down with that, so that's something. Other than that, I don't know if you have any questions.
Questions, anyone? Okay, thank you, Mark. Do we have time to do the bills?
I just got a couple things, unless you guys want to wait. That doesn't
Okay.
matter to me.
If anyone wants to speak, please fill out a form and turn it in to Joan. And if you, even if you just want to register for or against, state what you want to register for or against, and just check the box, or if you want to speak. Okay, Mark, let's do the bills.
Just so, most everything here is just usual activities that's happened, so there's really nothing that's jumping out. A lot of the costs, the bigger items, are gonna be related to the construction, finishing up at Riverfront on page 4 and 5. The GERB manufacturing in Hamburg on page 5. So a lot of that's related.
If folks could keep it down, please, because we're recording the meeting so people can hear.
Page 94 to 95 is Quick Trip, that's just the gas usage. Those actually, numbers are right on target, what they're supposed to be so far this year. Page 95 is the Madison Met Sewer District, second quarter billing. So if you add those into what the first quarter is, we're basically at 50% of the budget, so the number's doing okay. Other than that, page 99, just one last thing. Waste management, Wisconsin. The very last thing, that's the fuel tank that was in the park that we had to take out, so that was related to that. So that's all.
Okay, any questions? No? Is there a motion to accept the bills?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.